What? Nope. Live. Okay. The thing is, like, we can't really see. Like, look how far away it is.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Can you zoom in on it?
There's no, like, controls on it.
No. That's alright.
Oh, well. I wonder how far I can go. Yeah.
It's corded, not wireless.
No, it's
Do you
just
want to record it further?
well, my computer's plugged in. I don't want to make it trippy. That's quite a big cord. Does that look better?
Yeah.
YouTube. Yeah, I have to make sure the audio works, but the camera is just like far. It's like really far away from your presentation. So I'm trying to move it closer, but I don't want to make a tripping hazard. No. No, there's no controls on the camera.
Good.
It's just like it was so far away. Oh. One by the other.
Test. Just making sure everybody's still awake. Test. Good?
Yeah. I just need to, it's delayed, but it goes through, so. I mean, I'm not. Yeah, it's the, like, versus my computer, so, but I heard it's fine.
I think someone else proposed that question. Somebody's making them.
Oh, yeah.
Something.
Nick wants you to.
Okay.
How can you guys? So. Picture of the other side. Yeah.
I don't think that's.
Oh, yeah.
On the actual song.
Oh, now it's something.
No.
I don't know that. I know the answer to the question. I first went to the first one. And then I went over. That's what somebody He's got 3 weeks. He's got to find someone. Hey, look at How you doing? How you doing? How's it going? Ended up changing my seat. My ears. Trust me, anything. Yeah. It's on the 26th. Yeah, I'll be there. I said, What? Yep. Yeah. That's right. That's the thing. That's the only possibility of getting comfortable too. You got that right. Oh. Wow. What, 3 to 4 times? The night we got, yeah, last night we had
Seriously? You don't have any here?
No, I don't know. I was just looking in the
that was the first time we heard about Saturday, but it came stuck in. Yeah. Yeah, it's actually like, so, yeah.
Hey, back. Teach me inside good. Right. Okay, perfect.
I know, so then maybe not hear from the
Yeah. Mr. Daniels, how are
Sit right here.
How are you?
Okay, it's 6 o'clock, so we're gonna get going here, so people don't have to stay here all night. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Mary Kardusky, I'm the village president here in Ashwaubenon. I'd like to thank everybody for coming. We are gonna share what we know about the draft, everybody's excited about that. We will share what we know and we'll go from there. I'm sure there's a lot of questions because I hear a lot of rumors going around, so that's why we decided to have the meeting, so we could try to straighten out some of the rumors. The people that will be here tonight that I'd like to thank for coming is Joel is our village manager. He will be doing the presentation. Aaron Schutte is our community development director. Patrick Legal is our legal man. And Brian Rickard is our public works. And I see we have our deputy chief in the hallway area. They all went to the Detroit draft so that they could get an understanding of what was going to happen. So that's what we'll be presenting with you tonight, of what we know and what they experienced in Detroit, so we can get a better handle on all those people that are coming to our community all at once. So anyway, so I do want to point out that we have several trustees in the village here. Also, we have Chris Atkinson, he's in Wards 7 and 8. We have Gary Paul coming in, he's in Wards 3 and 4. I think that's all we have for right now. And Aaron Poppy from the Green Bay Packers will also be here in a short time. So if anybody has questions, do not be afraid to call me at the Village Hall. I'm there a lot. You can call any of the people here that represent the village. They'd be more than happy to answer any questions for you. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Joel Bregozeski, our village manager.
Okay, thank you, Madam President Marion. All right, real quickly, I do have some business cards on the back counter, so if you would like to take a business card, there's a few of them, so if there's multiple people from any organization, just take one per organization so there's enough left. Our contact information is on the village's website as well, so feel free to reach out through that avenue as well. I do want to point out, I'm not sure where he went, but Nick Meisner from Discover Green Bay is also in the back room. So Discover Green Bay, which is the Convention and Visitors Bureau in our area, plays a prominent role in what's called the Local Organizing Committee, or LOC. So I may reference that acronym throughout today's presentation. They're really the ones playing are really in the driver's seat, if you will, for preparing and planning for the overall draft itself in the community. We as municipalities, whether that's the Village of Ashwaubenon, the City of Green Bay, or Brown County, we are providing a supporting role to the local organizing committee and providing services that are necessary in order to host a successful draft in our community. So that I want to point out is that we don't necessarily, from a village's point of view, lead the efforts in planning, but we support the efforts to ensure that all the guests that come into our community have an enjoyable experience. As Mary had mentioned, the village sent 5 individuals to Detroit to experience the draft ourselves. And it wasn't so much that we were going there as fans of football, but more so as representatives of the village to get a true understanding of what this looks like. So we were there on Wednesday, the day before the draft, had a number of meetings with NFL officials throughout the day. We were there on Thursday. We had other meetings and tours during the operations, so we were able to see that. We were able to experience the actual first round of the draft, or at least the kickoff of that, and then we left on that Friday. So today's presentation, as Mary mentioned, is going to be our experience in Detroit. And the point being is that the information that's presented tonight that occurred in Detroit can easily be conveyed to what to expect here in Ashwaubenon and Green Bay when the draft comes this next April. So really quickly, I know that there are a few of you that maybe attended the draft in Detroit. There may be a few of you that have attended a draft somewhere else, whether that was Kansas City a few years ago, Las Vegas, Cleveland. Raise your hand if you've attended an NFL draft. Okay, actually fewer than what I anticipated, so that's good. So for those of you that have attended a draft, some of this may seem a little redundant, but the vast majority of the people in the room really don't know what to experience. And so real quickly, I'll kind of go through the highlights of what we should expect over the next few months, and then what we should expect over those 3 days of the draft. One thing I'll point out is that we have information on our website, so ashwaubenon.gov. If you're on our homepage, there's a link immediately under News and Updates that says 2025 NFL Draft. Most of the information on there right now is pretty bland, but as details continue to emerge, that information will continue to be populated onto our website, and so will become available as those things come up. Within our webpage, we have pages dedicated for the NFL Draft as it impacts residents of our community and information related to businesses. Now, I know that today's meeting is primarily business owners in and around the stadium district, so I want to point out that that's for businesses, but many of you are residents in our community as well, and so I think it's important for you to reference that page in addition to that. So if you don't know, we're about 273-ish days away from the NFL Draft. Doesn't seem like we have enough time. That's my personal opinion. Others may feel like, well, we're doing really good and we're ready tomorrow. But anyway, the draft is coming in April. It'll be over a 3-day period, April 24th, 25th, and 26th, 2025. When we put the bid in and we did our analysis, and we, meaning the local organizing committee, and submitted that bid, it was estimated at that time the economic impact of providing the draft was going to be around $94 million. So that would be about 6 times the economic impact that you would typically see on a typical home game event at Lambeau Field. Now, what we've learned since Detroit is that the draft has become a pretty big deal. In Detroit, they had over 750,000 attendees in and around the draft campus. That, as of I think a week or so ago, reported economic impact of about $213 million. So whatever was originally submitted as part of the bid and the estimate, we should probably expect more than that. We should expect a pretty good number of attendees and economic impact to our overall area and to the state of Wisconsin. If you are unfamiliar, some of you maybe not NFL fans, or maybe really had paid no attention to the NFL draft, you just really kind of focus on who the Packers pick every spring. The draft, again, is a 3-day event. The Thursday is the initial date of the draft, and that Thursday encompasses basically the first round. So those are the high prospect picks. That's where all the pomp and circumstance is really kind of held, and that's on that Thursday. Friday is the second day of the draft. That draft day encompasses rounds 2 through 3. So again, relatively high picks in the world of the NFL, so there is still quite a bit of interest. And then that Saturday encompasses the latter rounds, so 4th, 5th, and 6th round picks. What we understand and have experienced is that Saturday really is kind of that family-friendly day. And with that being said, I would say Thursday, Friday, they were very family friendly as well. So it's not like your typical game day experience where you have a lot of heavy drinking in a short amount of time. It's really everyone is there to enjoy the experience and are fans of professional football. The draft campus, which we'll describe a little bit in more detail, is broken into two parts. There's a draft theater area. That's the area that you predominantly see on TV when you watch the NFL draft, and rightly named the theater area. The NFL experience is the area in which within the campus of the draft, that is where the fan engagement is. And I should note that we are on YouTube Live, kind of streaming this. So Haley, were you able to see me when I stand way over there, or should I stand there?
No, I'm here.
So I just want to make sure that we're being cognizant of the people online. So the NFL experience, again, is that fan engagement area, and we'll talk a little bit more detail on what that means. The draft itself is free. So there is no ticketed system to enter into the draft. You essentially have right to access it so long as you meet the security protocols to enter the draft. However, the NFL does request that entrants into the draft campus download and register themselves on their app called the NFL One Pass. So if you've been to other NFL events, Super Bowls, things like that, you likely had to use this app. It's a very similar from that standpoint. Although it is free to enter, and it is pretty much open so long as you meet the security protocols to come in, there is capacity limitations based on the overall areas designated for both the experience and the theater area. And that's going to be predicated solely based on the square footage of area that those are going to be designated as. But throughout the event, there may be a situation where an area in the campus has reached capacity, and that area would then be closed either for a portion of that day or for the remainder of that day. We experienced that in Detroit on Thursday. We were in the theater area, and they basically closed the campus down because it reached the capacity limitations for the size of the campus. So if you're registered and you have the app, you get a notification on your phone. It says the campus has now reached capacity, and they are basically closing entrance into the campus. See you tomorrow. This is a highly secure event, so similar to game day, but to some extent a higher degree of security than what you would experience on game day. So we'll talk a little bit more about that as you make your way into the campus area. Some of the images that I'm going to kind of walk through are going to show and depict experiences that will lead up to the draft. So if you've watched it on TV, the theater area encompasses a very large stage. That stage is a temporary structure built over a series of weeks leading up to the draft. Our understanding, based on experiences in prior drafts and what we saw in Detroit, that build-up could take anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks. We anticipate that stage to be in and around the Resch Complex area. We can't say that definitively at this point, but we anticipate it to be in that general area. So anticipate road closures around that stage or that theater area to last 4 to 6 weeks. You'll see the stage in other pictures, but I liken it to if you take the Resch Center, cut it in half, pick it up, and set it down, that's literally the size of this theater stage. It's huge. The other thing you'll start to notice is that the local organizing committee, along with the NFL, is going to work towards putting up various signage throughout the community. And so this is signage that you'll see, banners, billboards, building banners, things of that nature that are going to be related to the NFL draft and related to NFL franchises. I want to point out that the draft has, and the NFL has, very strict and stringent rights to the imagery that the teams and the NFL has. So if you're a business and you're trying to promote your entity utilizing the graphics or imagery that is by right the NFL's property, don't do that. You will get a letter from the NFL and some nasty grams from them, and you probably don't want to be marred in legal issues. So the NFL will take care of promoting itself, promoting its teams and franchises as part of the draft, but you will see this activity on the build-up to the overall draft event. As I mentioned, in Detroit, we are right downtown, so a lot of high-rise buildings. The NFL, along with its sponsors, put up large banners and billboards throughout all of the buildings. Now, obviously, our area doesn't have buildings of this size and scope, but I would anticipate that you will see or receive requests from the NFL to have these types of banners placed on or around your building. So just be advised that those things are going to happen. Those do need to get permitted just like any other sign or other construction project. So just be mindful that these types of banners and billboards do require permitting through either the village or city, depending on what jurisdiction you're in. When the campus is constructed, it will be eventually locked down during the event of the draft, but certainly during the build-up phase, there will be periods where portions of the campus will also be locked down. And when they begin that secure perimeter, you will see things like 6 or 8 foot high panel fencing, basically encompassing the entire campus. Those fences will eventually be wrapped in banners, as you see here. Those banners obviously are done by the NFL and the local organizing committee, and they include sponsor information. They include things like wayfinding, things of that nature. You can kind of see that here. There are other components to the overall campus area to ensure that it's secure from other threats, such as vehicles or other situations from that standpoint. But we won't go into too much detail with that, other than it will be a secure campus. As I mentioned, in Detroit, we were right downtown, so the campus basically lined streets. So you had a lot of businesses, a lot of high-rise buildings that basically abutted the overall campus area. And so the NFL does what they can to ensure that individuals have access to the buildings. This is a main sidewalk on the right-hand side. I believe it was a bank or some type of retail establishment. And basically you have the campus immediately to the left. So the NFL will work with those businesses to ensure that they can maintain access for customers during that build-up and during the draft phase itself. The other thing you may start to get inquiries on is telecommunications. So part of this draft, we're bringing in tens of thousands of people, and everybody in today's modern society has cellular technology, cell phones. And so in order to have the infrastructure in place to support all those additional people onto the network, they have to construct or develop temporary cellular technology. So you'll see this type of apparatus throughout the draft campus area, so additional endpoints, cellular points, that type of thing, again, to not only support the draft and its operations itself, but also the customers that, or the patrons or the visitors that are coming to the draft to ensure that they have wireless capability when they arrive. The other thing I'll point out on this image too, so on the right, basically it was a light pole that the city had maintained, and so there's cellular endpoints there. On the other side, it's a separate picture. There's a temporary tower that was constructed to provide some cellular microwave technology, but there was also a number of situations where security cameras were also installed. There were probably thousands of additional security cameras installed in downtown Detroit to support the operations of the draft. They were attached to buildings, they were affixed to temporary poles, street lights, so on and so forth. So you will see a very, very much increased level of security cameras and vantage points from that point of view as well. As we get closer to the draft, there will eventually become various social events and meet and greets that the NFL and the local organizing committee will coordinate. Oftentimes, these are going to be in conjunction with local area businesses. So in this particular case, this was a prospect, Derek May, is that the gentleman's name? He was drafted in the first round as a quarterback. He had a meet and greet prior to the draft through Raising Cane's restaurant. And so he came out, kind of grilled some chicken for Raising Cane's, and did some autographing. We experienced a very similar situation. There was a Buffalo Wild Wings close to the draft campus. Sauce Gardner, cornerback for the Jets, he had a meet and greet at Buffalo Wild Wings because he has his own barbecue sauce apparently, and he was signing bottles and handing it out. So at some point, there may be interest in doing meet and greets and things like that, and so there may be some engagements at the NFL, and some of these prospects may entertain to draw interest for the draft as well. So let's talk a little bit more in detail about the overall campus that we experienced in Detroit. As I mentioned, the campus itself is composed of 2 areas. We have the NFL experience area and then the NFL theater area. And those are demarked here in this map in blue and yellow. So the experience area here is in blue. It was connected by a long corridor. Again, because they're in downtown Detroit, we have several large buildings. That was a necessity, and then we had a large open area here for the theater. What I would describe the theater as, the light yellow area was the fan area, so that's where we were when we were watching the production of the actual draft. The dark yellow area was pretty much the back of house operations. So if you've watched the draft and you've seen the prospects in the green room with their families, things like that, they build a number of temporary structures to house the green room and have the prospect areas and so on and so forth. So that dark yellow area, even though it's not part of the fan experience, is a very important component of the overall draft. The other thing I'll mention, in Detroit, there were 3 entry points into the campus. Based on our experience, the NFL likes to limit the number of entry points into the campus area for security purposes. 3 is a high number to the NFL. Preferably, I think, based on my experience, they like 2. So anticipate a low amount of entry points into the campus. We don't know where those are going to be definitively yet, but it will be limited because the entry into the campus has to go through a very stringent security protocol for people to enter. The other thing that the NFL prefers is that those entry points be close or in proximity to the NFL experience. So they would rather have the fans enter into the experience, be engaged with the activities within the experience area, and then once inside the campus, filter their way into the theater area to then get to that point of the campus. So again, the theater area, as I talked about, again, Detroit was kind of an unusual situation because of the downtown nature. The campus was a little jagged. So again, our experience, this is a photograph that we took. We were able to, because when we arrived in Detroit, we were able to get relatively close to the end of the theater area for general public use, but by the time we got towards the latter part of the afternoon, we decided we wanted to be further back so that we could leave when we wanted to. So as I mentioned, there's a temporary stage built. Think rest center, that's how big this thing is, it's big. There's about a 4-week build out, a 2-week removal, about 6 weeks. That's what we heard from the city of Detroit when we met with them. One thing I'll mention is that the area that you see in front of you on the graphic, that's the general admission area. The area that you see on TV when you watch the draft and you see all the super fans and the crazy people, those are the VIPs. So anyone here a super fan of the Green Bay Packers? Sorry, you probably won't make it inside the tent area. So you gotta be a VIP or a large donor, I suppose, to the local organizing committee, and then maybe you get VIP access. Regular Joes like myself, we're gonna be out in the general audience. There are areas that are ADA accessible, so there are accessibility provisions. So if individuals have wheelchairs or have other needs, there are accommodations that way. And the general admission, again, is that large area. How I describe the NFL theater experience is, again, my personal opinion, but I view it as a television production. So you have a company coming in and they're producing a television show, and so they need to make basically the stage, if you will, for that television production. And so when you're there, you're going to see that. Lots of cameras, lots of studios, things of that nature. If you're like me and you're in the general admission area, you are an extra in a TV show. Again, that's my perspective. If you're a huge NFL fan, maybe you have a different point of view. There are support areas within the theater area that I described earlier. Again, this is a picture from on the stage. This was provided by Getty Images. The Detroit Free Press, I believe, was the one that produced this image. But the point here that I want to show is this area that you're seeing directly in front of the stage, that's that VIP area. Super fans, the VIPs. Every club basically has an area under the stage that they can invite so many fans to. to basically take up that area. In the event, and this may happen primarily on Friday or even Saturday, if VIPs don't show up and that area is cleared, what we experience in Detroit is that other fans, so long as they're up front in that general admission area, they may be asked or invited to come up. Because again, the NFL wants to make sure that this area looks full, right? Because this is the area that is going to be on TV. So they want to make sure that this looks good on TV. The other thing I'll note here, on the right and left of this image, there are 2 television studios. So within that canopy, there are 2 television studios. So throughout the draft, they are producing television content, whether it's ESPN or NFL Network, things of that nature. So they're going to be there, and you don't necessarily see them when you're in general admission, but you can see their backs as they're producing the draft itself. So again, here's a picture of the overall general admission area. So all that stuff on what would be the left of the image, that is all the VIP under the canopy. The rest of the sea of people is primarily that general admission area. Kind of point out a couple things here. There is some ADA accessibility provisions here. There's some covered areas along the building here that was set up for additional media. You'll look on the far reaches here, there's some additional structures that are built. Many of those are additional television studios. So if you think you have ESPN, you got NFL Network, maybe CBS has their own stage. Other television shows have their own production studios constructed specifically for the draft and temporarily. The other thing I'll note is when you're watching the draft on TV, you likely probably didn't see portable toilets or restrooms anywhere on TV. You probably didn't see people eating a lot of food per se, unless it was a cutaway or like a B-reel. That's because they try to tuck that kind of out of the imagery of the television production. So if you look at the very far left kind of upper corner there, just past the Detroit player billboard, that is pretty much where the food and beverage and bathroom facilities were for the general public or general admission area. So again, kind of tucked away, but still very accessible to the people. The tents that you see just below the high-rise building that has fewer people by it, those were VIP hospitality areas. So those VIPs have their own separate areas for food, beverage, restroom, and those are restricted to those VIP areas. So I would anticipate having that same experience here in Green Bay as well. As I mentioned, a lot of temporary structures are built for television production. So here's a TV studio that was built. They actually built a 3-story television studio, so they have different television productions or shows going on throughout the draft on each level. So that was kind of interesting. At the start of the draft on Thursday night, there's always some type of kickoff, a high celebrity kickoff. I'm not sure who that person's going to be, but this was a hip hop artist from the Detroit area. It's a Little Sean, Big Sean, Big Sean. Sorry, I don't want to be disrespectful. Big Sean, he was big. What we experienced when Big Sean came onto the stage, that Nick liked Big Sean a lot. Yeah. When Big Sean came onto the stage, or slightly before, there was a huge influx of people that came just to watch Big Sean perform. So they were Detroit locals, natives of the city, fans of him because he's a local artist. They came. It was shoulder to shoulder, as tight as can be. And then when he was done performing, a number of those individuals left, and that opened up a little extra space. We are guessing as to who that local artist is going to be. I'm thinking maybe Violent Femmes, the Goffs, Aaron. Who, I mean, maybe. Could be somebody big. Yeah. We said the Cougars, but we're not sure if they're big enough. So I think every night ends in fireworks, so expect fireworks displays. Some people like fireworks, some people don't like fireworks, but expect fireworks. There will likely be fireworks as the conclusion to any of the nights of the NFL draft. Again, as I mentioned, food and beverage tucked away. One thing to note, so inside that secure campus area, the local organizing committee and the NFL work with very specific vendors. Those vendors are the ones that are approved to work inside the campus. Everything is branded specifically to the NFL and to the draft. And so they're working directly with the NFL as to what they're able to sell, the prices that they sell at, and basically how cash is exchanged in purchase of those items. Now let's talk briefly about the NFL experience area. Again, this is that area in blue. That's the area that the NFL and the organizers would prefer fans to enter. Again, this is that engagement area. In that engagement area, generally speaking, all teams are represented. In this picture, they have helmets, they have player profiles, they have all that sort of stuff. A lot of photo opportunities. There's a variety of family-friendly activities. There's photo ops, as I mentioned. There's a ton of player meet and greets. So basically prospects, generally speaking, the local team to the draft has a number of players represented there as well, so a lot of player meet and greets for that. And then there's a variety of other additional food and entertainment options in that. One thing I always like to mention, and I think it's safe to say here, so they usually set up kind of some temporary structures. They have experience areas where you kind of get up and close to the Lombardi Trophy and all the Super Bowl rings. These are all things that we're kind of used to, being close to the Hall of Fame. In Detroit, the fans in Detroit have never seen a Lombardi Trophy. So there was a long line to see that. I would expect our line might not be as long. NFL engagement, these are all things we probably have seen before. NFL experience has been the year before on kickoffs and things like that. So 40-yard dashes, kind of physical elements, vertical leaps, some of the same things you see at the Hall of Fame here at Lambeau Field. Again, huge open area, lots of fans, lots of different engagement areas. This is actually early in the day, so it does fill in. This did reach capacity as well on our first day. These are those engagement areas where you can kind of step up and put your head in a player profile, get your picture taken, and you can look like any of the players that you'd like. The one thing I want to mention about, so that's the overall NFL campus. In addition to the campus in Detroit, there is an organization called the Downtown Detroit Partnership, or what's commonly referred to as DDP. They worked with the local organizing committee and the NFL to hold an activation area outside of the campus. So if you've been to Detroit, there's an area called Woodward Avenue. It's kind of the boutique shops, the hotels, the restaurants, that type of thing. And essentially what they did is they closed down Woodward Avenue for vehicular traffic, and they opened it up to attendees or participants downtown Detroit. So when you left the campus and you entered into what is called draft in the D, you left one secure zone to enter a new secure zone, which we'll talk about in a moment here. And basically this was a huge area. In our experience, when we left the campus and entered into draft in the D, we were shocked by the volume of people that were on Woodward Avenue experiencing downtown Green Bay, or Detroit, excuse me. And basically what it is, again, a partnership between the NFL and downtown Detroit. It encompassed 7 parks, about a mile of Woodward Avenue. It was a secure area outside of the draft campus, but once you left the draft campus, and let's say entered draft in the D, you would have to go back to one of the entry points to re-enter the campus. Again, shopping, entertainment, and there were also draft viewing areas throughout. They had portable video boards that were up to allow people to see them. So this is us leaving the draft campus. We literally walked out of the campus and we immediately entered into another security checkpoint. And then once we were inside that secure checkpoint, we were in draft in the D. So this was the area that you saw things like food trucks, other vendors, direct sellers, things of that nature, because those types of vendors are going to be limited and regulated if they're inside the campus. Outside the campus, there were fewer regulations as it related to those types of vendors. So that was Detroit's opportunity to really engage in its business community beyond what was allowed within the campus. There are a variety of art features that were throughout, kind of interactive. Here's, you can go in and sign your name, the 3 letters for Detroit. I'm not sure where they were putting those after the event, but that was kind of a neat feature. All the stores that wanted to be open were open, and so there was opportunities for participants to go in and out of the stores. You can see here by the Verizon store, Verizon being a major sponsor, they had an activation where they had a player meet and greet, so there's that draft banner there on that morning. So what are we doing here in Ashwaubenon? We have 5 internal teams. It's really kind of 6 teams working, as I mentioned before, not necessarily to plan and organize the draft, but to support the draft and its efforts to provide a welcome and safe environment. So we have a team of individuals on our staff that are doing pre-planning and logistics. They're supporting the efforts of the local organizing committee as it relates to transportation, parking, road closures, things of that nature. So they're just basically staying in tune as to what is being planned so that we can then adjust and plan accordingly based on that. On the operations side, our public safety department is actively engaged in planning and securing the draft campus areas, as well as the entire surrounding area and community during that event. Public Works is heavily involved, dealing with things like road closures and sanitation issues, from garbage collection to utility issues like water and sewer. We have a group that's doing activation and events, and that's really kind of what spurred the interest in holding this meeting and providing this basic information to each of you, and then really kind of trying to understand what activation and events could be planned in the surrounding areas of the campus. We have a group of people working on information, marketing, and promotion, and really what it is that the NFL, the local organizing committee, and Discover Green Bay, they're going to do a fantastic job of promoting the draft. What we want to promote is our local community and how we can really take advantage of the additional people coming in. This is a 3-day commercial. This is a 3-day first impression, if you will, and so there's a really good opportunity to really highlight and showcase what we have going on in Ashwaubenon and all the great things. And then beyond that, we know that this is going to be a large event that's going to have profound impacts to everyday life, going to the grocery store, going to church, and things like that. So we want to make sure that we're able to communicate with our residents and businesses so that they understand what those impacts will be. And then we have a group that's working on beautification and wayfinding. One thing that we recognized right away when we were in Detroit is they did a knockout, stand-up job at beautifying the community. Road right-of-ways were mowed, litter was picked up. There were highway crews every single day of the draft picking up litter. They made their community sparkle, and it was very, very well evident from the airport all the way to downtown. So we're looking at what are those high-profile areas that we really need to look at, and are the things that we can do now so that come April, our community also shines and sparkles as well. Some of the things that people often get questions on are, kind of what should we expect for the campus? So in this particular image, we have the red boundary. What that is basically the campus of Detroit. So oftentimes we hear people like, well, boy, that was huge. How is that going to work in Green Bay? So that red boundary is the Detroit campus. And as you can see, when you put that over the top of Lambeau Field, it's really not that big in relation to all the open areas and the areas around the stadium, the Titletown District, and the rest complex. The yellow area is just a reference point for us. When we went to Detroit, we thought, okay, from a staff perspective, how would we lay out this campus? This is not defined by the NFL, so I want to make that very clear. And this is not going to be what is. This is just our reflection of what we experienced in Detroit. So we know that there's going to need to be an area for the NFL experience. We know that there's going to need to be an area for the NFL theater. And we also know that there's a need to provide areas for backstage, back of stage, if you will, and support areas. So think of game day, think of that Packer experience, the parking lot around Lambeau Field, the Titletown District, and the rest complex. Those are the areas that are going to likely be used as part of the campus. One of the things that the NFL will not likely do is encompass large swaths of area that are going to take businesses out of operation and things of that nature. So they're going to try to limit that as much as they can. I would anticipate the experience to be more towards the Titletown District. So think of the west end of that kind of area, and the theater area to be somewhere on the east end. Roads that will likely be impacted as a result of the draft will be a portion of Oneida Street, portions of Ridge Road, portions of Lombardi Avenue. So I would anticipate those are going to be the streets that are most impacted by the campus. Now, as I mentioned earlier, this is a TV production, so they have to make the theater, they have to do all that. This is not like your typical game day where the night before we can set up a few traffic barricades and prepare for the next game the following Sunday. There are going to be thousands of people from out of town in our community building this campus. So there's a lot of opportunity outside of just the 3 days of engaging with those workers that are coming into our community and taking advantage of the business that they could provide. So they're going to be scurrying about building stages and structures and fence panels and security points and things of that nature. So just remember, it's not necessarily just a 3-day event. That's when the bulk of the people come in. But there are weeks in advance of the draft where people will be here on a regular basis that will need to have hospitality for themselves. So some things that we mentioned to stakeholders in our community that you want to recognize and be aware of. Short-term rentals. So there are going to be no changes to short-term rental rules in the Village of Ashwaubenon. So if an individual is looking to rent out their home and it exceeds more than 10 nights, they will need to be licensed by the village. With that in mind, if you're planning on renting your home even for 1 night, you do need to get a Brown County Health Department license. So it's important that you understand that. There on our website, on that draft information, there's a whole list of regulations. There's a 6-step guide that Discover Green Bay put together that you can look at if you're thinking about renting your home out for the draft. RV camping. We've had a lot of interest in people saying, well, I'm going to rent out my parking lot for RVs and allow people to camp. RV camping is not permitted in the Village of Ashwaubenon. We do not anticipate a change in that regulation. That will create a challenge for us from a public safety standpoint. We're already going to be stretched thin, and so we want to make sure that if people are taking and being housed, that they're doing so in an appropriate venue. The NFL, Discover Green Bay, possibly the Village of Ashwaubenon are going to be looking for temporary volunteers or employees to help support the draft. So there are interest forms on Discover Green Bay's website, so if you're interested in helping support the draft, want to be part of the experience, there's that opportunity as well. From a business and vendor standpoint, mobile food establishments can operate under the same rules as they are today. There will not be any additional special provisions as it relates to mobile food establishments. So likely need a health license. You will likely need a license through the Village of Ashwaubenon. So make sure that if you're an operator of a mobile food establishment, you understand the rules and regulations that pertain to that. Same thing with direct sellers. Direct sellers aren't going to be given any additional provisions or special allowances or exceptions. They will need to be licensed appropriately. And with that being said, direct sellers do need to ensure that they're following any licensing requirements that the NFL or the Green Bay Packers have established. So you need to be selling what you are licensed to sell. In addition to that, the NFL has a draft supplier diversity program. There's a link directly on our website, so if you'd like to be a business that's inside the campus or supporting the draft campus operation, you can apply through the NFL through their supplier diversity program. As I mentioned, stay tuned to information, promotion, and marketing, so there's going to be a variety of things that come up throughout. And then moving on to beautification and wayfinding. If there's things that you can do in advance of the draft that maybe you've been contemplating getting a new sign for your operations or changing a facade or doing some improvements to your business, it would be a great time to do that. Because again, this is your opportunity to make a great first impression. You're probably never going to have this amount of people in this amount of space and time in the near future. And then think about what is different that you can do in your business to activate it, to really kind of promote it, and really make the experience for your guests that top-notch experience, right? Because at the end of the day, yeah, they're coming for the draft, but we want them to come back for you. We want them to come back for Ashwaubenon, for the greater Green Bay area. We want them to visit again. That's what's important here. The draft is just a catalyst to hopefully get those people to come back and spend additional dollars here. So with that, I'm going to do a couple quick introductions. I know there's some individuals from Brown County Health Department. Is there anybody that wanted to kind of come up and do a quick introduction? Okay, I'm going to pass it to Austin quick. Thanks, Joe. So my name is Austin Carter. I'm one of the health inspectors, primarily in the Ashwaubenon region of Brown County. So some of you food operators might actually be aware of me, some hotel operators. So we're just here. We're glad to be here. Thank you for the invite. Really, for the draft, we understand that it's an opportunity of a lifetime for a lot of businesses around the area, and we know that people are going to be doing stuff very different from what they're usually doing as regards to food and lodging and stuff like that. So we're just asking for communication. You know, if you want to do extra things or change your business model or something like that, we're just asking that you reach out to us. It may require additional licensing. Some of it may not be allowed. We really want to work with you guys to make sure that you guys are doing everything safely, and we want to help you have a great event and make sure no one gets sick or hurt in the event. So we're just exercising communication. So thanks, y'all.
Eric Hopke, would you like to say a few words at all, or are you good? You don't want to pass up this opportunity, right, Eric?
Joel, before Aaron gets up there, can I just make a comment? I inadvertently forgot to mention that we do have another village trustee here, which is Chris Zerbel, and he is also our county board supervisor in this area. So if you have any questions, county-wise, village-wise, feel free to contact any of our trustees that are on the board, and we'll help you.
Thanks, Joel. Thanks, Mary. Aaron Hopke, Director of Public Affairs with the Packers. I have some colleagues with me here today. Gabrielle Dow, our VP for Marketing and Fan Engagement, Megan Robertson, Planning Specialist with our team, and colleague also Nick Meisner with Discover Green Bay. So we're part of the organizing committee that's been working on the draft, and I really want to say thanks to Mary and Joel for putting on this session as far as information to get out, and I can't say enough about how great they and their team have been to work with. We've obviously been working with them for years on various things, but the draft is certainly a different type of initiative that we have discovered and continue to discover, but in a very good way for our community, and we're really excited about it. There's a lot of work to be done between now and then on top of the work that has already taken place. So really can't say enough thanks to the whole team at the Village, Nick and others, and really everything that's going on. So I thought Joel's presentation was fantastic, really gave you a taste of what Detroit was. And as he said, it's going to be similar to that in many respects, but very different to that in many respects. We're blessed, if that's such a word we can use for this, but fortunate to have a campus that we have, as Joel outlined. We've got great space. Certainly with the Lambeau footprint, Titletown footprint, and the Resch complex footprint, and how that ultimately gets used, we'll see. But what really makes it different, and I think advantageous for us, is different from Detroit, in that we've got a lot of square footage, that a lot of that can take place conveniently, efficiently inside that footprint. Certainly opportunities as people come to and from, but not as challenging in some respects as the footprint was in Detroit. So I know the NFL has been excited about that, as been public safety folks as well. So Joel mentioned some of the things that are forthcoming. We're working on all aspects of the draft to have that come together in a way that we can all absorb and plan for. And one of those things that Joel mentioned with the branding and logos, those types of things, our teams are putting together a do's and don'ts and a guide that'll further outline that. There's already some items on Discover Green Bay's website as far as businesses, what they can do to start thinking of things on top of what Joel suggested. And as we get some things finalized with the additional information that's going to be available within that resource, I will make sure we get that out to everyone via email and the various networks that we have, the Ashwaubenon Business Association, certainly the Village's website, our website, Discover Green Bay's website. So as that information becomes more available, we'll certainly spread that on. So just want to say hello on behalf of the Packers, and thank you, and turn it back over to you or my colleagues. Anything else we want to say up front? Very well. Thanks, Joel. And be here for questions.
Sure, we might have questions. So that leads us to questions. I will try to repeat whatever questions I hear.
So you give us an idea of the footprint, but from a business standpoint, what time do these complexes open at that you can start to maybe see foot traffic through town? Like, is there an event thing that tells you what kind of concerts are, or roughly how long, so that if we're looking at influxes of people coming and going for around the day, we have an idea of we might get hit hard here or here maybe, depending on time frames.
Sure, so I'll try to summarize the question, kind of paraphrase it a little bit. So the question is, how can businesses kind of prepare for the influxes of people? What kind of schedule of activities and events primarily happen? I believe that during the draft event when you start to see kind of influxes of people. So I think Aaron and I are taking that a little bit based on our experience in Detroit. So on Thursday, the campus itself opened at, I think it was 12 p.m. Eastern time. So anticipate maybe 11, 12 o'clock our time here, 12, 1 o'clock-ish. Okay, so early afternoon, we don't know, somewhere around there. The first day, there's a pretty decent buildup of people right from the onset. And so they encouraged us when we were there to get there early, because they were concerned that they would have reached capacity. Now, we have a much larger area, so the campus may be able to hold more people than what Detroit had. So I would anticipate on that first day, you're gonna see influxes of people from 12 until about 4. And then once you get to like that 4 o'clock time frame, then people start kind of hunkering down or start trying to claim their stake, if you will, in the theater area. So they wanna make sure that they have a good viewpoint into the theater. So think about that entire afternoon as a real opportune time to activate and engage and get people, because they may not necessarily want to be in the campus for the full kind of 12 or 10 to 12 hour event. They might want to kind of be around the campus and then come in when they feel like they're ready to stake the claim. Yes. So let me, I forgot, I want to add to that. So the schedule of events that the draft will ultimately produce will be on that OnePass app. So I think, I'm not sure if Detroit's still out there, but if you go out on the OnePass app, you can kind of take a look at what they've done in Detroit, and you can see kind of the schedule of events. It'll likely be similar to that.
Yeah, it looks like Detroit has turned over from, or OnePass has turned over from Detroit. But some of the images that Joel had were great representation. The OnePass app, really, when that comes online, which won't be until we get closer to the draft, but it's really going to be a great resource. It's got the maps, the schedules, other resources around the area, opportunities for activations around the area. But for people coming into the area about where to park and shuttles and those types of things. So we know we've got a unique area here in terms of parking. Fully anticipate the neighborhoods getting used as like on a game day or a big event day. We'll have that information. Gabrielle mentioned in addition to everything that's online, we're going to have some publications that are put out with respect to your traditional newspaper type of guide that you may have seen with other events. So that's something that will be a resource that's available around the community as well. And statewide, yeah, through Nick and the team at Discover Green Bay, they're going to make sure those get distributed to their partner CDBs and direct marketing organizations around the state. So we want anyone coming from anywhere to know how to get to the site, but also the best ways to get through the site. And hopefully that'll contribute to the most efficient way for tens of thousands of people to descend upon our area. So we will have information out there in many different ways, hopefully making the experience good for everyone involved.
Well, kind of answered a little bit of that. One of my main questions is I manage an apartment complex on McCarthy Way. The parking, the foot traffic, them being able to get in and out, etc. That's kind of one of the main things that we're concerned, or at least want to have heads up on.
And that's probably a local issue that we'll address. So obviously we want to make sure that businesses have access, the residents that are in these apartment homes that are in that kind of sports and entertainment district have access. Now, that access may be different than what you experience today. There may be roads that are closed, and so what is the traditional route that individuals like to take, they may have to take an alternate route. So in this case, Mike McCarthy, maybe everybody likes to go down to Holmgren to go wherever. It may not be beneficial for them to go down to Holmgren. Maybe they need to go out to Ashland to then go north or south in whatever direction they have. Yeah, we don't know what that's going to look like yet, so I can't comment on that.
My name's Bill, I do a special delivery. We have a trucking company over on Lake McCarthy Way as well. Our biggest concern is are we gonna have access in and out of there? We got between 15 and 25 trucks per day coming in and out of there. And if so, we anticipate higher traffic levels to get in and out of there, prolonged delays, and will be low function.
Yeah, I would anticipate there'll be certainly higher traffic volumes. There may be delays as a result of those traffic volume issues. Again, you might have to find alternative routes versus, going towards the campus area for those deliveries. You may have to go out to the east to find access to that point of view. So yes, inevitably there will be some impacts from that standpoint. I don't want to say that there won't be just because of the volume of people. So anticipate it to be like game day, but maybe worse with the volume of people when it comes to that kind of thing. Better if you like a lot of people, but certainly like a game day type experience with volumes of traffic. It's certainly possible at certain times, depending on what we anticipate the influx of people to that area is. So yes, traffic patterns may change. It may be similar to game day. It may be different than game day. It just kind of depends. And I know Nick Kozlowski from Public Safety can provide some comment. I think Aaron had some additional points. So I'll pass it to Nick and here.
Yeah, and the NFL is working with a traffic team that is going to look at the best avenues to try to get people to and from. We are way too early to be discussing, I guess, what roads are going to be one-way and two-way streets. But those issues will be addressed. They're going to work on that, and as we get closer. But it's too early to really speculate on that.
I would add the overriding thing we are hearing from the NFL is they're certainly sensitive to coming in and being a big event like this and disrupting in certain ways. So they do continue to repeat that. And closures, they will hold off until they need to, those types of things. So they continue to speak of recognizing that, being sensitive. I think I mentioned we're different from Detroit in many different ways, but the other thing that Nick and the others involved in public safety that they like about this compared to some of the other sites is how there's fewer anticipated disruptions for businesses and that sort of thing. So we've got some advantages there, but not to say there won't be some unique circumstances that we'll all be working through. And as soon as those get determined, that'll be communicated. So they continue to point that out, and we continue to express that from a planning perspective to the Packers and everybody else involved. The other thing I would add in terms of people getting in and out, I sometimes point to this example. Who was around back in 2011? I'm going back, which also means it's been a while since the last Super Bowl. But the 2011, the kickoff, after 2010 Super Bowl season, we had the kickoff night here in Green Bay, which included that concert. People remember that at Armed Forces. Thank you. Yeah, good. So that was at Armed Forces at Oneida. That stage was built, and those of you that were there, we were there at the Packers. Saw that huge crowd out there having a good time with the music and all the different things going on, and we figured that would really the number would go down tremendously as the gates opened and people came in to get ready for the game. Well, the gates opened, people came in, the stadium filled out. There was still a huge crowd up there. So the NFL, the Packers, we adjusted what we thought were numbers out there. And, we had 70,000 people in the stadium and still 30,000 people outside. So we know, the point of this is we know that footprint can absorb 100,000 people plus. I don't want to say easily, but can absorb that. And there was far less planning on ingress and egress for that particular event. People found their way. They parked, they walked, they got there. Big event took place, they had fun. Concert was done, those people left, game went on, great night. So we think of that in a less organized way that took place and went off fairly darn well. So we think of that and what this space is capable of doing. And Nick, I don't remember if that was before your time, but
Just start.
yeah. So I mean, it was pretty eventful and it went off. And one of those nights that our community really shined because that was looking great on TV for millions of people that are tuning in, and we fully anticipate for this as well. I mean, Joel showed those shots of Detroit. Imagine what our campus is going to look like, full of people, the neighborhoods, the energy. It's really going to show well.
Other questions?
Right here.
As far as Joel using the parking lot, like at Margaritas, are we going to be able to like set up tents and we've got to go through the permitting process? What about reselling, alcohol, food, and liquor outside? Is that gonna, are we able to do that, or do we got to go through?
Nothing different for the draft than what is required today. So likelihood there'd be tent permits, there'd be maybe a premise extension, temporary premise extension for alcohol sales within your parking lot. That just depends on how you have your original license set up. So anything that you have to do today will still be required for that draft. So if you've never done that before, there are requirements that you sell alcohol, for example, you have to get a premise extension. If you're going to put up tents, there's a tent permit requirement and inspection on that tent. So there are things that still need to be permitted properly and so on and so forth. Yes, thanks, Tim. Yes, Mark.
What do you foresee as parking? I mean, are you going to be busing people in from around the area, designated parking lots, different spots? Because you're taking out a big chunk of parking in Lambeau's lot.
Yeah, I'll let Aaron answer this more directly because you're more directly involved in it. But yeah, I think the short answer is yes, the parking and shuttles, but I'll let you answer that.
Correct. The NFL's got a company that they partner with, that they contract with, that handles transportation and parking. Part of the effort that we went through, and I say we with Discover Green Bay, some colleagues, Nick, have been working on that, but identifying and preparing satellite lots around the area to have a shuttle system that will come in, but people from coming out of town can utilize these lots, take shuttles in, get dropped off, shuttle back out to those lots. So there's that sort of perimeter discussion as well as other outlying lots outside of that, park and ride type of situations. So all that's being identified right now. In fact, they were just in last week talking about the next level of planning that they're working on. And then, of course, the up close parking that we know for games and other types of large events at the stadium, the concert from back in 2011 I just mentioned. The NFL and I think public safety fully anticipates the neighborhoods having that similar type of situation, people parking and then walking in. So those will all come together in the plan that comes around that, particularly with the shuttles and parking. And then the ride shares too, drop off areas, pickup areas, all those types of things. So there's a company that specifically is working on that to put that plan together. That will be part of the information that's included in the OnePass app. Detroit had a couple different pieces of information regarding that. And then, of course, we'll put that same information in our published piece, the newspaper type piece that will go out. Anything else on that, Nick, Gabrielle, Megan? Yeah, encouraging people to park in yards. Yeah. Fair price, those types of things. I mean, the same thing we see on game day, I think we anticipate that. But even the public safety folks, it was last season or season before, did a census of sorts, where they went out and saw how far away people were parking in yards, so they had a sense of that. And I think we're fully anticipating that, you know, south of the stadium in Ashwaubenon, north of the stadium into Green Bay, those types of things. And again, shuttles from points all over the community from surface lots and ramps downtown, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Do you anticipate this sort of game day experience for tailgating to be allowed? Because that's going to have a large impact on our business and a lot of other businesses. Probably have to bring in anticipation for something like that.
Well, I would suspect, given the nature of the campus area, that some of those larger parking areas in very close proximity to Lambeau Field may be used for the campus. So tailgating and private yards, things of that nature, I would anticipate that to be an occurrence as well. So yeah, yes, I suppose you would expect that. So the question was, I don't know if everyone heard that, but would we expect the same kind of tailgating environment that you would on a game day? I think to some degree, yes.
Yeah, does that include how you kind of let them have the liquor while they're walking in that area? You know, like beers or whatever, I mean, just saying.
So the question is, can you walk with liquor or beer? Our staff will likely, and I'll let Nick respond to this, so it probably is illegal, but I don't know that we're necessarily going to be out there and enforcing that based on our availability to deal with other issues.
Yeah, without, I'm not gonna get a hard and fast answer today, but logic would probably tell you that it would be game day rules as far as open intoxicants would be, which is written in the ordinance that tailgating along with game days. I would suspect we would follow that.
And to follow up on the parking comment, there will be, I mean, the same sort of activity that goes with parking, I think will take place like on a game day, but just knowing, and maybe you're getting into this, fewer spots, significantly fewer spots will be available at the site, if any at all. I think we're still determining that, but I think it's going to be certainly space for the event itself, and then parking for the support staff that are going to be there. So we don't anticipate any parking up close at all, just for the average attendee.
Do you have a designated timeline that you plan on releasing information, such as stage area and streets and things of that nature?
Timeline, the question, March, yeah, mid-April. I think part of the experience we saw in Detroit was there were late adjustments being made in the campus itself, those types of things. I mean, at some point we'll know the times of the event, you know, whether they set it at 11 or 12, that sort of thing. But with respect to road closures and those types of things, yeah, really don't know that. So I think, you know, one thing we've talked about, our team and various people we ought to speak to is we'll continue to come out and speak and give updates. There may not be a lot of updates until we get past into the new year and those types of things. I know everyone's anxious, and for good reason, street closures, and to be able to plan accordingly. And the NFL is certainly sensitive to that as well. But those are things that will come into, you know, February, March, April, you know, some of those things what we saw in Detroit. But we as organizers are certainly cognizant of that too, and we continue to push to make sure we have that information as soon as we can.
One thing that I'll add too is as we get closer to the event, we've identified where those street closures are going to be, potentially durations of street closures. What we'll be doing is, and using that transportation plan that's established, is identifying if there is additional signage that can be created. So one of the things that we're talking about, if you're familiar with when a road is closed for construction, especially with a DOT type project, there's some temporary signage that's installed so that individuals know that a business is still open ahead of what is kind of perceived to be a soft road closure. So we'll work through that once that transportation plan has been established, and then we'll work directly with those businesses in that area of closure so that we can ensure that there's adequate signage and notification that those businesses are still available for business. But Tim, you got a question?
Yeah, I got a question for Aaron. Aaron, as you know, I got a large piece of property across from Lambeau, and I'm getting all kinds of calls on what type of access do we know anything about that or?
Where the entry gates will be.
Yeah, I noticed that it's shadowed out for the NFL experience. So how is that gonna work?
The entry to the campus, Joel had a shout out of where they were in Detroit. For the campus for our event, still be determined where those gates are. So that's something we won't know probably until the new year on where they're set. Now, we do know, I assume we're talking about Ridge and Lombardi,
Yeah.
the northeast corner, your spot there.
Yeah,
Yeah, so that'll be certainly outside the campus. You know, we anticipate, you know, Lombardi being one of those spots. So I think what you're asking, I think it remains to be seen what the traffic is there. You know, because Lombardi will be closed at some point. So what the traffic looks like on that road leading up to Lombardi and Ridge, that's TBD. You know, I think once the campus is set and public safety, they'll figure out the traffic flow, that sort of thing. So we don't necessarily know that yet. And then the gates to get into the event itself will be determined on that in that same time frame too. So it's the answer that we don't quite know yet, but we know where it is and it's outside and we'll have some traffic effect due to the closure. It's just a matter of when and where the traffic goes from there or diverted from there.
Just wondering if, you know, when people are gonna start coming to the draft, are they gonna come that weekend before? And are there gonna be events before Thursday? So not necessarily probably scheduled by the NFL as part of the campus area, but that's certainly an area that the community could work on as far as activation and events go. There will be an influx of people during that build-up phase. There were fans obviously coming in that week. Interestingly, what our experience in Detroit on Wednesday, we were down at the campus area Wednesday night for a number of meetings, and it was fairly quiet in downtown. And I don't know why that was, if that was a concerted effort by downtown Detroit to try to kind of give a free night, if you will, to allow for the setup. I'm not sure that that's going to be prevalent here. I think with the fact that we have Lambeau Field here in our backdrop, I think there's going to be fans that are going to want to be here and see the campus. We didn't see a lot of onlookers on Wednesday night. It's just there weren't a lot. I would anticipate that probably being different, just based on what you see every day you drive by Lambeau Field. There's somebody taking a selfie in front of the stadium. It's going to happen. Let's do two more questions, and then just because we're getting a little bit long, and then if there are additional questions, by all means, again, my card is in the back. My information is here on the screen. Feel free to email those questions to us, and then I can forward those on. I think somebody has a microphone back there, and then I think we might have a question here.
Okay, my question is tied to the shuttles. Like Tim, we're getting quite a few inquiries about bringing shuttle buses or shuttling people to our business, and just wondering if the buses are going to be able to get to us, and are we going to be able to park buses where we're located?
So I think the question is bringing, so let's say you're a hospitality business, right, a tavern or some sort, or a sports bar, and you want to bring in a patron load of individuals to your establishment, park the bus. They can hang out at your establishment and eventually make their way to the campus if they so choose. I think the short answer is, in all likelihood, yes. But again, that route, that access, that timing is going to be dependent on the campus activities. So to be determined yet, but yes. There should be no business that has zero access other than any businesses that are within the campus, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Okay. Did you have an opportunity to stop in some of these mom and pop restaurants and bars and ask them how you prepared for the event? Like ordering hamburgers and steaks and hot dogs and so forth. I think that's a big question with the restaurants. How do we judge what we're going to need And then getting delivery trucks with the meat products, the buns, the beer, the ice, and so forth. Did you have any opportunities to drink a beer and shoot the shit? Thank you.
Mary, no, I did not drink a beer. But we did stop at a couple, I guess you could call it the mom and pop, the locally owned establishment, not the franchise, if you will. And so, to be honest with you, and those that were with us, I think maybe they have a different experience, but they were kind of running scattered. It was a little disorganized. We came into an establishment on Wednesday night to eat dinner or just take a reprieve from between our meetings, and they didn't know which menu to use. They had prices for Wednesday, they had prices for Thursday, and so they didn't know that. They didn't know. It just seemed like they were a little disorganized. So I think that's certainly a reasonable experience to have. We've heard mixed stories. We've heard that some establishments did extremely well, and others maybe not to what they would have or what they had expected, right? So I don't want to say they did poorly. It's just maybe they had higher expectations than what was reasonable. So there are people in this room, and I don't know how much they were willing to share, that were in Detroit that probably asked those more specific questions because they're in the same kind of industry, if you will. I would maybe talk to some folks that, if you have an opportunity, look them up in Detroit and give them a jingle. A good example too is the National Convention down in Milwaukee this past weekend. So a lot of that security aspects of the RNC are very similar to a draft campus. So it's kind of a closed campus. You got to go through security. So a lot of the business that were surrounding the perimeter of the RNC may have experienced some of those same things.
I just have a question. The roads that are going to be closed, are they going to be closed 24/7? And if those roads are closed 24/7, are you going to allow people with golf carts or UTVs or bicycles to be going up and down those roads?
Well, the experience that we saw elsewhere, but also what we're hearing here, is there will be opportunities for businesses to get what they need, and those hours will be established for those that are inside the perimeter. I think when we know more about the campus and traffic patterns around it, we'll know more of those types of things. But with respect to the road closures themselves and what goes on after that, I know Joel has some thoughts maybe to share on that. I would just, I'll turn the mic back to him, but I would just reiterate a couple things earlier that Joel said with respect to hospitality. There are a lot of people coming into the community to work on this. The room nights that are being used by people coming in to set this up. One of the things that Nick and his team did was got hotels, and we owe a lot to the hotels in this community for being a part of it. I know there's a couple of them here. I see Vicky over there, but different hotels in the community are part of this to varying degrees. But there's a lot of room nights that are getting built up through the process of building up to the draft. So those people that are in town working and setting up the draft are going to be looking to enjoy local meal, local beverage, those types of things. So let's keep that in mind. And echo what Joel said. If you've got contacts in Detroit, Kansas City, Cleveland, I've been saying that ever since we got awarded. The business opportunities are do some networking with your colleague type businesses in those cities. Find out what worked well, find out what didn't work well, find out what they wish they would have done, those types of things, and just be prepared and get a best practice, if you will. The guide that we're putting together hopefully will contain some of these things, because I asked our chamber, I asked New North, I've asked anybody who wants to help out, please get a list of things that businesses can use as ideas to prepare for these visitors, not only the days of the event itself, but the lead up time that I just mentioned, even though afterward, there's going to be some days it takes to tear things down, so to speak. So do your best to find out that info from the other drafts, not just Detroit, but again, Kansas City, Nashville. Gabrielle down.
Nashville, call it Nashville. They plan their deliveries early. So they knew that the time, we were gonna have time, so we know when it's gonna start, we know when it's gonna end, and tell me all your distributors will be ready. And you just plan ahead, we'll get all that information, plenty of time. So I wanna make sure you guys, like Nashville is a perfect example because there's tons of bars and tons of entertainment, and that's what we have in this community. They also pull together, you know, all of your restaurants, I think of margaritas, specials. You know, these people are coming here 30 days to load in ESPN NFL Network. They have all these roadies and crew guys that are working all these hours. Give them a great meal. Tell them where to go. Let's put a packet together. We'll work with you guys. And so it's in their hotel room. And they can go to every different place because they don't want to eat at the same place every night. And they all get per diem. Send them out. They want to go and have a beer and relax and walk. And all your establishments are right here. Oneida is a great street for them to walk down and do stuff. So I just think that there's a lot we can do before the draft to get you business for the load in. And the load out is a lot faster. It always takes things much easier to load out. But loading in, how do we make sure all these people get to all your places of business? So, and then my other note here was Nashville is definitely like us. And we'll have a style guide and a brand. So we would love to see you guys celebrate all of this with signs and stuff like that we'll have available. For, I mean, the purchase you have to get them printed, but clings and different things to decorate to show, you know, that you're part of this and part of the community. So we definitely have this whole guide. Nick's gonna have that ready and we'll share that. That's gonna be fantastic. We want to embrace everything. And you know, the hotels are gonna be also doing this. We've been helping some of the hotels. The CDB will have representatives in each hotel welcoming people. So they'll be handing out information, we'll be handing out information, we'll be showcasing all of your businesses, especially F&B.
Yes. So, yeah, very similar to like promoting when we have the girls' basketball tournament, volleyball championships, things like that. So a couple quick points to make, and then we're going to wrap up. And again, I want to thank you. So one quick point, number one, we are planning on having another meeting like this, likely in the future, I think February, March, because we're hopeful that we have much more concrete details at that point in time. We're certainly getting much closer to the date at that point. Our counterparts in Detroit have expressed to us that once the Super Bowl has been completed, then all attention from the NFL moves to the draft. So things are going to move hot and fast post Super Bowl, and we hope to provide updates to that. The website, again, anytime information becomes concrete and can be shareable to the general public, we will post it on our website. I know the Packers have pages dedicated to the draft, as well as Discover Green Bay. And then I wouldn't be remiss to just kind of answer some of the street closure questions. So it's our experience and understanding from talking with our counterparts in Detroit that when the draft is occurring and the campus has been established, then that is secured, it is closed, right? And there's not going to necessarily be soft openings during that time. There are sweeps, there are different things that are done to ensure that the campus is secure for a variety of purposes. So that's closed. But the build-up aspect of it, there may not be a hard close all of the time. If the theater area is built on top of a road right away, they're likely going to need to close that down to build the theater. But beyond that, if there are these other ancillary areas that are going to be used, there may be lane closures while they're doing the build-up. There may be soft closures, meaning like an afternoon it's closed, things of that nature. But once the draft is actually occurring, that campus will all likelihood be locked down and closed for the duration of that 3-day affair. Okay, again, I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. We really appreciate the feedback and the questions. Again, stay tuned and we'll have more information forthcoming. Thank you.